The Marchioness of Dunmore's annual spring ball blazed with the light of 1,000 candles, their flames reflected in crystal chandeliers that hung like frozen waterfalls above the assembled aristocracy. Silk rustled against marble floors, champagne flowed from silver fountains, and the cream of English society swirled in elaborate patterns across the dance floor. Carenza Fairholme watched it all from behind a potted orange tree in the far corner of the ballroom, invisible as always. At 23 years old, she had perfected the art of disappearing. Not physically, of course. She was present in the room, dressed in a modest gray gown that marked her as neither servant nor guest, but something far more ambiguous. A companion. Lady Philippa Morecambe, her elderly employer, sat dozing in a chair nearby, having declared the evening far too tedious for conscious observation, which left Carenza free to observe without being observed. She catalogued the dancers with a practiced eye. Lord Pemberton was drunk again, nearly treading on his partner's hem. Lady Ashworth's diamonds were paste, though she wore them as if they could purchase the crown. And there, gliding across the floor in matching gowns of rose silk and cream satin, were her stepsisters. Honoria, now the Countess of Westbrook, moved with the practiced grace of a woman who had spent years preparing for exactly this life. Her husband, the Earl, was 3 decades her senior and possessed the personality of damp wood, but his title gleamed bright enough to overshadow such concerns. Celandine, the younger, had secured the Earl of Ashwick just last season. A better match in terms of age, though the Earl's gambling debts were whispered about in every drawing room in London. 2 stepsisters, 2 Earls, 2 perfect lives built on the wreckage of Carenza's inheritance. She felt no bitterness about it anymore. Bitterness required energy, and she had learned to conserve what little she possessed. When her father died 8 years ago, she had been 15 and foolish enough to believe her stepmother, Sophronia, would honor his memory by caring for his only child. Instead, Sophronia had produced documents, lawyers, and witnesses that somehow proved the Fairholme estate belonged entirely to her and her daughters. Carenza had found herself with nothing but the clothes on her back and a choice: accept Sophronia's offer to remain as an unpaid servant in her own home, or leave. She had left. Lady Philippa, her father's elderly aunt by marriage, had taken her in. Not from kindness exactly, but from spite. Lady Philippa despised Sophronia with particular venom, and employing Carenza as her companion was a small but satisfying act of defiance. It was not a glamorous life, but it was hers. Well, look what crawled out from the servants' quarters. Carenza's spine stiffened at the familiar voice. She turned to find Honoria and Celandine approaching, their faces arranged in expressions of delighted malice. "Sisters," Carenza said evenly. "How lovely to see you both." "Is it?" Celandine giggled behind her fan. "We certainly take no pleasure in seeing you lurking about like a ghost at a feast. I am accompanying Lady Philippa." "Ah, yes, your little position." Honoria's lip curled. "Tell me, does the old bat pay you in actual currency, or merely in the privilege of existing in her shadow?" "She pays me in the satisfaction of not being married to a man who falls asleep during his own conversations." Honoria's eyes flashed. "You insolent little—" "Careful, sister." Carenza's voice remained calm, though her heart hammered. "We are in public. Would not want to cause a scene." "You think you are so clever." Celandine stepped closer. "But cleverness cannot purchase gowns, can it? Look at you, dressed like a governess at a ball. Do you know what people say? They say, 'There goes the Fairholme girl, the one who lost everything, the one nobody wanted.' Perhaps," Carenza said quietly. "But at least I know my worth is not measured in the title of the man I married." "Your worth," Honoria laughed. You have no worth. You are nothing. An orphan with delusions of dignity. While you what, exactly? The new voice cut through the confrontation like a blade. All three women turned to find a man standing several feet away, his expression one of polite inquiry that somehow conveyed absolute authority. Carence's breath caught. She knew who he was. Everyone knew. Hadrian Ravencroft, the 7th Duke of Alderton, was considered the most eligible bachelor in England. Tall, dark-haired, with eyes the color of a winter sea and a jaw carved from marble. He was 31 years old, obscenely wealthy, and had spent the last decade rejecting every woman the marriage market had thrown at him. And he was looking directly at Carence. "Your Grace," Honoria dropped into a theatrical curtsy. "What an honor. I am the Countess of Westbrook, and this is my sister, the Countess of Ashwick. We were simply greeting our dear stepsister." "Were you?" The Duke's gaze did not waver from Carence. "It sounded rather more like you were cataloging her deficiencies. Poorly, I might add." Celandine flushed crimson. "Your Grace, I assure you, you may assure me of nothing. You may, however, leave." His tone remained pleasant, which made the dismissal more devastating. "I wish to speak with your stepsister. Alone." They retreated, casting venomous glances over their shoulders. Carence stood frozen. "Your Grace, I thank you, but I assure you it was unnecessary." "I noticed. You handled them with admirable composure." He moved closer, studying her with intensity that made her skin prickle. "Miss Fairholme, I have a proposition for you." "I beg your pardon?" "A business proposition. One that would solve a pressing problem of mine and dramatically improve your circumstances." "I do not understand. I need a fiancé." He said it flatly, as if announcing he needed new boots. "Not a real one. A temporary arrangement lasting 4 months. In exchange, I am prepared to offer you financial independence for the rest of your life." The ballroom seemed to tilt around her. "You cannot be serious." "I am entirely serious, Miss Fairholme, and I suggest you hear my terms before deciding, because I believe we might be exactly what each other needs." Carence stared at the Duke of Alderton, waiting for the moment when he would reveal this as some elaborate jest. The moment did not come. "Perhaps we should find somewhere more private," he said, glancing at nearby dancers, "unless you prefer to negotiate in full view of London's gossips." "I have not agreed to negotiate anything." "No. But you have not walked away either." He was right, and they both knew it. She followed him to a small antechamber, her mind racing. The room was elegantly appointed, with velvet chairs and a fire burning low. The Duke closed the door, but did not lock it. A small courtesy she noted with reluctant appreciation. "My father's will contains a clause," he began without preamble. "I must be engaged by my 32nd birthday, or forfeit a significant portion of my inheritance to a distant cousin who would squander it within a year." "When is your birthday?" 4 months from today. Why not become engaged to someone of your own station? The women my mother paraded before me want a title and fortune. They do not want me. They do not see me." His jaw tightened. "I have grown weary of being viewed as a prize rather than a person." "And you believe I would be different?" "I believe you have no interest in my title whatsoever. You looked at me just now, with something approaching annoyance. It was refreshing." Despite herself, Carence felt her lips twitch. "You have a peculiar definition of refreshing." "I have been told I have peculiar definitions of many things." He leaned against the mantelpiece. "Here are my terms. You pose as my fiancé for 4 months. We attend social functions, present a convincing facade, and at the end, we dissolve the engagement quietly. I will claim the fault as mine. And in exchange, £10,000, deposited in an account in your name alone. £10,000. The number struck her like a physical blow. Freedom. Real, tangible freedom. "Why me?" she asked. "Of all the women in London?" "Because of what I witnessed just now. Your stepsisters attempted to demolish you, and you parried every blow without flinching. You have spine, Miss Fairholme, and you have nothing to lose, which means you are unlikely to develop inconvenient expectations. You assume I am incapable of inconvenient feelings. I assume you are practical enough to suppress them. Was I wrong?" Carenza considered the question. Could she spend 4 months pretending to love this cold, calculating man and walk away unchanged? What about living arrangements? You would reside at Alderton House, chaperoned by my aunt, Lady Octavia. Separate quarters, of course. And your family? My father died last year. My mother passed when I was young. My aunt manages the household and will be informed of the arrangement's true nature. Carenza's mind spun through possibilities and pitfalls. This was madness. But so was spending her life fetching shawls for an elderly woman who barely tolerated her. If I agree, there must be additional terms. First, half the payment now, as good faith. Agreed. Second, your word that when this ends, I will not be painted as a fortune hunter. You have my word. Third, she lifted her chin, I want access to your library. Genuine surprise crossed his features. My library? I have heard you possess one of the finest private collections in England. 4 months is a long time. He stared at her. Then, unexpectedly, he laughed. A low, rusty sound. Miss Fairholme, you are the first woman who has ever asked me for books as a condition of engagement. You have yourself a bargain. He extended his hand. Carenza looked at it, then at him. She took his hand and shook it firmly. Then we have an agreement, Your Grace. Hadrian, he corrected. If we are to convince society we are madly in love, you should probably use my name. Hadrian, then. And you must call me Carenza. Carenza. He spoke it slowly, tasting the syllables. It suits you. Unusual and resilient. Is that a compliment? It is an observation. He released her hand, and she noticed the absence of his warmth. I will send a carriage tomorrow morning. Our engagement will be announced at the Pemberton musical in 3 days. 3 days is hardly enough time. Simple lies work best. We met through Lady Philippa, discovered mutual interests, and developed feelings. People will believe it because they want to. Until tomorrow, then. Until tomorrow, Carenza, and thank you for taking a chance on this madness. Thank me in 4 months, she replied, when we have both survived it. The Duke of Alderton's carriage arrived at precisely 9 o'clock the following morning. Carenza had been awake since dawn, her single trunk packed with everything she owned, which amounted to depressingly little. Lady Philippa had received news of the engagement with characteristic bluntness. So you have caught yourself a duke. I always knew you were cleverer than you let on. Now, as the carriage rolled toward Alderton House, Carenza wondered what awaited her. The carriage turned through imposing iron gates, and she caught her first glimpse of the residence. Her breath stopped. It was enormous. The facade was classical Georgian, all symmetrical windows and elegant proportions. But the sheer scale dwarfed every building she had ever entered. A butler, whose expression suggested he had witnessed many strange things, admitted her. He led her through an entrance hall of marble and gilt, past portraits of stern ancestors, and into a study that managed to be both magnificent and comfortable. Floor-to-ceiling bookcases lined the walls, filled with volumes that looked read rather than decorative. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, and standing by one window, reading a letter, was Hadrian. Carenza's first thought was that he looked different without the ballroom's formality. No coat, just shirt sleeves and waistcoat. His dark hair was disheveled, as if he had been tugging at it in frustration. Then he turned, and she saw his eyes. Storm cloud gray, intelligent, and furious. "Aunt Octavia," he said, in deadly calm to someone behind her. "Would you care to explain why I have received 14 messages of congratulation regarding an engagement I knew nothing about?" Carenza spun. A woman stood in the doorway, perhaps 60, tall and angular, with steel-gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. "I am Lady Octavia Ravencroft," the woman said, "Hadrian's aunt, and I see my nephew has already begun his dramatics." "Dramatics?" Hadrian's voice could have frozen water. "You told me she would arrive this afternoon. You said nothing about announcing the engagement early." "I may have encouraged certain whispers at my card party last evening." Lady Octavia moved into the room. The news spread faster than anticipated. "You," Hadrian pinched the bridge of his nose. "This is precisely why I did not want you involved." "And yet here we are." Lady Octavia turned to Carenza. "Miss Fairholme, I apologize for the chaos. My nephew, despite his intelligence, sometimes fails to appreciate the value of momentum." Carenza looked between them, uncertain whether she had walked into an alliance or a battlefield. "Perhaps," she said carefully, "we should discuss how to proceed from here." Hadrian's gaze swung to her, something flickering in those penetrating eyes. Respect, perhaps. She is right. What is done is done. He moved to pour himself a drink. "The Pemberton Musicale is now tomorrow evening. We have one day to prepare." "Then we should begin immediately," Carenza said. "Tell me everything I need to know about you." Lady Octavia's lips twitched with approval. "I believe, nephew, that you may have chosen better than you knew." The Pemberton Musicale was precisely the sort of event Carenza had spent years avoiding. Glittering chandeliers, towering floral arrangements, and 300 members of London's elite packed into a ballroom. The air was thick with perfume, champagne, and barely concealed judgment. She stood at the entrance beside Hadrian, her hand resting on his arm, acutely aware that every eye had turned toward them. "Breathe," Hadrian murmured. "They can smell fear." "I am not afraid." "Then stop crushing my arm." She loosened her grip. "Apologies." "Don't apologize. Channel that energy." His hand covered hers briefly. "Remember, we are madly in love. Look at me as if I am the most fascinating person you have ever encountered." "That should not be difficult. You are certainly the strangest." His lips twitched. "There, that expression. Keep it." They descended into the crowd. The first hour was a blur of introductions and thinly veiled interrogations. Carenza repeated their fabricated story until it began to feel almost real. Through it all, Hadrian played his role flawlessly, his hand at her waist, his attention fixed on her, his responses smooth when she stumbled. It was unsettling how natural it felt. During a brief respite, Lady Octavia appeared beside them. "Your stepsisters have gathered sufficient courage to approach." Carenza's stomach plummeted. "Our little stepsister, engaged to a duke." Our little stepsister, engaged to a duke. "Life is full of surprises," Carenza said evenly. "It certainly is." Celandine's smile could cut glass. "Tell me, Your Grace, however did you come to notice our Carenza? She has always been so very invisible." Hadrian's arm tensed beneath her fingers. "I find that the most valuable things are often overlooked by those lacking perception," he said coolly. "Miss Fairholme possesses qualities I have sought for years: intelligence, integrity, courage." His gaze swept over the stepsisters with devastating dismissal. "Such qualities are exceedingly rare." Honoria's face flushed red. "How romantic," Celandine managed. "And when is the wedding?" "We have not set a date," Carenza said. "We prefer to enjoy our engagement." "How sensible. Though at your age, one cannot afford to be leisurely." Is that a warning or a threat? Hadrian asked, his tone silky and dangerous. I confess I cannot tell with you. Color drained from Honoria's face. Merely an observation, Your Grace. None taken. Observations from those who lack insight rarely offend me. He inclined his head. If you will excuse us, I have promised my fiancée a dance. He swept Carenza away before either stepsister could respond. That was brutal, Carenza said. That was restrained. His wry smile surfaced. I could have mentioned Lady Westbrook's husband's visits to certain establishments, or Lady Ashwick's husband's gambling debts. How do you know such things? I make it my business to know things about people who threaten what is mine. He met her gaze, something fierce in those depths. For the next 4 months, you are mine to protect. Before she could process his words, they reached the dance floor, and he drew her into position for a waltz. I should warn you, she said breathlessly. I have not danced in years. Then follow my lead and trust me. The music began, and they moved. It was nothing like the awkward dances of her single season. Hadrian danced with complete command and unexpected grace, guiding her through turns until she stopped thinking about her feet entirely. You are smiling, he observed. Am I? Genuinely smiling. Not the performance smile you have been wearing all evening. She had not even noticed. Perhaps I am discovering this arrangement is not entirely unpleasant. His thumb traced a small circle against her waist. Perhaps you are. The music swelled, and Carenza found she had no answer, because the truth was, she was discovering exactly that. And it terrified her. 4 weeks into the arrangement, Carenza had established a routine that suited her surprisingly well. Mornings were spent in the library, devouring books she had only dreamed of reading. Afternoons brought social obligations. Evenings varied between quiet dinners with Hadrian and Lady Octavia, or grander affairs requiring performance. It was the quiet evenings she treasured most. Tonight, a violent thunderstorm had canceled their planned attendance at Lady Morrison's ball. Instead, they sat in the library, fire crackling and rain lashing the windows. Hadrian occupied his usual chair with a parliamentary report. Carenza had claimed the settee, deep in Cicero's letters. You have been on the same page for 10 minutes, Hadrian observed. I'm thinking. About Cicero? About this. She gestured at the room, at him. 4 weeks ago, I was invisible. Now I am the most talked about woman in London. Is it unpleasant? No. That is what disturbs me. She closed her book. I spent 8 years convincing myself that wanting nothing was safest. It is confusing to discover I might want things after all. Safer from what? Disappointment. Loss. She moved to the window, watching rain streak the glass. When you have lost everything once, having things again becomes frightening. The silence stretched. Then she heard him approach. What did they take from you? He asked quietly. Beyond the obvious. Something cracked inside her. A wall built over 8 years. My father. The words scraped her throat. Not just his death, but his memory. Sophronia erased him from that house. His books, his portraits, his chess set. Everything that proved he existed. Tears burned behind her eyes. I was 15, and I had to watch her burn his letters to my mother. Love letters. She read them aloud and laughed. Carenza. She smiled the entire time. Made sure I understood she had won. A hand touched her shoulder, tentative and warm. Look at me. She turned. Hadrian's face was stripped of its usual reserve. What she saw was not pity, but recognition. I was 17 when my mother died, he said quietly. My father retreated into this library and never emerged. For 14 years, I watched him disappear into grief and silence. He died last year, and I realized I had spent my entire adult life waiting for a father who was already gone. Hadrian. That is why I value this collection so fiercely, not its monetary worth, but because it was all he left me. Pages and bindings, and the ghost of a man who loved knowledge more than his living son. They stood there, two broken people who had learned to hide their fractures. "I am sorry," Carenza whispered, "for your loss, for your loneliness. I'm sorry for yours." His hand moved to cup her cheek, thumb brushing away a tear. "You deserved better." "So did you." His gaze dropped to her lips. The moment stretched, weighted with possibility. Then he stepped back. "It is late. You should rest." "Yes. Good night, Hadrian." "Good night, Carenza." She fled to her room with her heart pounding. Something had shifted between them. Something dangerous and undeniable. 8 weeks into the arrangement, Carenza could no longer pretend she was merely playing a role. She was falling in love with Hadrian Ravencroft. It was in the way her pulse quickened when he entered a room. The way she watched for his rare, genuine smiles. The way his opinions had begun to matter. His approval to warm her. It was catastrophic. The arrangement was clear. 4 months of performance, then freedom. She would walk away with her money and her heart intact. Except her heart had not received that instruction. "You have been avoiding me." She startled, nearly dropping her book. Hadrian stood in the library doorway. "I have been reading." "You have been reading the same volume for 4 days." He moved into the room, closing the door. "Have I done something to offend you?" "No." "Then why do you flinch when I touch you? Why do you leave rooms when I enter?" "Because you are dangerous. Because you have become essential to my happiness." "It is nothing." "Fatigue, the strain of performance." "Lies." He crossed the distance between them. "You are the most honest person I know. Do not start lying now." "Hadrian, please." "Please what? Stop noticing something has changed? Stop wondering if the way you look at me means what I hope it means?" Her heart stopped. "What?" "I have tried to maintain distance." He was close now, close enough she could see the pulse in his throat. "I have reminded myself this is temporary. But somewhere in these 8 weeks, it stopped feeling temporary." "You cannot mean that." "I mean every word." His hand rose to cup her face. "I am falling in love with you, Carenza Fairholme. And I need to know if I am alone in this." She should lie. She should protect them both. But she had promised him honesty. "No," she whispered. "You are not alone." His breath caught. For one suspended moment, she thought he would kiss her. Then reality crashed back. "We cannot do this." She stepped away. "This is exactly what we agreed would not happen. What I feel is not inconvenient. It is the most genuine thing I have experienced in years. It is not real." The words tasted like ash. "We have been performing. How can we trust that what we feel is authentic rather than proximity and pretense?" "You think I cannot distinguish performance from truth?" "I think neither of us can. Not anymore." She wrapped her arms around herself. "I came into this desperate for money. If I accept your feelings now, how will either of us know if mine are genuine?" His expression fractured. "We need to finish what we started," she continued, voice shaking. 8 more weeks. We honor our agreement. Then, when I am no longer dependent on you, we will see if these feelings survive reality." The silence was agonizing. Finally, Hadrian nodded. 8 weeks. "And if what you feel survives? Then come find me, and I will give you a different answer." He looked at her, expression ravaged, but resolute. 8 weeks, he repeated. "I can wait." He left without another word. Carenza sank into the nearest chair and let herself cry. The remaining weeks slipped past in a haze of careful distance. Carenza and Hadrian continued their public performances flawlessly. But behind closed doors, they orbited each other like planets that dared not collide. Every accidental brush of fingers sent electricity through her. Every shared glance held volumes of unspoken words. With only a handful of days remaining before the arrangement's end, Carenza allowed herself to imagine what might come after. Hadrian had promised to find her. Perhaps they could begin again. Properly this time. Then the letter arrived. She found it on her breakfast plate, addressed in unfamiliar handwriting. Lady Octavia watched her open it. The words blurred, then snapped into terrible clarity. Miss Fairholme, your engagement to the Duke of Alderton is nothing more than a financial arrangement designed to deceive London society. We possess evidence, including testimony from servants and documentation of payments. Unless you wish this information to become public, you will end the engagement immediately and leave London. You have 3 days. Your stepsisters wish to expose you publicly. We have convinced them private humiliation is sufficient. A friend. The paper trembled in her hands. What is it? Lady Octavia demanded. Wordlessly, Carenza handed her the letter. Lady Octavia's expression hardened. Those venomous serpents. Someone in this household has been talking. If this becomes public, Hadrian's reputation will be destroyed. And yours. I have none worth protecting. She stood unsteadily. I should leave tonight. If I am gone, Hadrian can claim he discovered my deception. It will hurt him less. You would sacrifice yourself for him? I love him, Lady Octavia. The admission came raw. I have been trying not to, but I do. And because I love him, I will not let them destroy him. Lady Octavia gripped her shoulders. Do you truly believe Hadrian would want you to martyr yourself? My nephew has weathered worse storms. What he cannot weather is losing you without a fight. The library door burst open. Hadrian stood there, a matching letter crumpled in his fist, expression thunderous. Tell me you are not planning to run. Hadrian, tell me you are not so foolish as to think I would let you sacrifice yourself to protect me from scandal I do not care about. Your reputation is meaningless compared to you. His hands gripped her arms. I would burn my reputation to ashes if it meant keeping you. None of it matters. You would ruin yourself for an arrangement that was never real? It became real the moment I fell in love with you. His voice cracked. And I will not lose you to your stepsister's petty vengeance. Tears streamed down her face. Then what do we do? His jaw set with determination. We stop running. We stop pretending. And we show London exactly what happens when you threaten a Ravencroft and the woman he loves. The Marchioness of Dunmore's summer ball was the event of the season. Every family of consequence would attend, including Carenza's stepsisters. It was where Hadrian intended to make his stand. This is madness, Carenza said as their carriage approached. If your plan fails, it will not fail. You are proposing to confess fraud to 300 witnesses. I am proposing to control the story. He took her hand. I would rather face ruin at your side than safety without you. The ballroom blazed with candlelight. Carenza spotted Honoria and Celandine immediately, their expressions smug with anticipated triumph. They expected her to be gone. Hadrian led her to the center of the ballroom and raised his hand. The music stopped. Conversations died. Ladies and gentlemen, his voice carried effortlessly. I must address accusations leveled against myself and my fiancée publicly. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Honoria's face went pale. It has been suggested that my engagement to Miss Carenza Fairholme is fraudulent, a financial arrangement designed to deceive you all. Gasps echoed. I stand before you to confirm this accusation is partially true. The gasps became exclamations. When I first approached Miss Fairholme, it was with a proposition of mutual benefit. I needed a fiancé. She needed security after years of being denied her rightful inheritance by those who should have protected her. His gaze swept toward her stepsisters. But what began as arrangement became something neither of us anticipated. In Miss Fairholme, I found intelligence, integrity, and courage. I found a partner, a love I had stopped believing existed. He turned to face her fully, taking both her hands. The arrangement may have been fiction, but my love for you is the truest thing I have ever known. He sank to one knee. Carenza Fairholme, I am asking you now, not as part of any bargain, but because I cannot imagine life without you. Will you marry me? For real this time. For always. Tears blurred her vision. You extraordinary man. You have just confessed fraud to all of London. I have confessed love. Society can make of that what they will. She looked at the assembled faces, some scandalized, others moved. Then her gaze found her stepsisters, frozen in humiliated fury. Yes, she said loudly. Yes, I will marry you. Hadrian rose and kissed her, while London society watched, whispered, and ultimately began to applaud. Because scandal was forgivable when wrapped in a love story. The wedding took place 2 weeks later in the private chapel at Alderton House. It was small, perhaps 50 guests, but every person had earned their place. Lady Philippa sat in the front row, dabbing her eyes. Lady Octavia stood as witness, her severe expression softened by something like joy. Carenza wore ivory silk, simple but elegant, purchased with funds she had carefully set aside from the initial payment Hadrian had provided at the start of their arrangement. When he had tried to buy her something grander, she had refused. This was her gift to herself, proof that she could stand on her own, even as she chose to stand beside him. When she walked down the aisle unaccompanied, Hadrian's face transformed entirely. The mask fell away, leaving only wonder. "You are magnificent," he murmured. "You are biased." "Completely. I intend to remain so forever." The ceremony was brief, but meaningful. Vows spoken with trembling voices, rings exchanged with shaking fingers, a kiss that lingered longer than propriety demanded. Afterward, Lady Octavia offered a toast. When my nephew first informed me of his ridiculous scheme, I thought he had lost his mind. I was wrong. He had finally found it. To Hadrian and Carenza. Later, Carenza slipped away to the garden. Roses bloomed, their fragrance heavy in the summer air. Footsteps approached. She knew without turning it was Hadrian. Escaping your own reception? Savoring it. She turned. I keep expecting to wake up. If it is a dream, I hope never to wake. He drew her close. Are you happy? Deliriously. Good. His voice turned mischievous. Because your stepsisters' husbands have discovered financial irregularities in their dowries. Dowries largely composed of your inheritance. Carenza stared. How do you know this? I may have arranged for certain information to reach certain solicitors. Your stepmother faces legal proceedings. The Fairholme estate may soon be returned to its rightful heir. Hadrian, you said they destroyed everything proving your father existed. I cannot bring him back, but I can return what they stole. She kissed him then, pouring everything into the embrace. When they parted, he rested his forehead against hers. I love you, Duchess of Alderton. I love you too, you maddening, wonderful man. 5 years later, the library at Alderton House echoed with sounds it had never known. Laughter. Carenza watched her husband attempt to read a parliamentary report, while their 4-year-old son, Benedict, climbed his leg. Papa, you are not paying attention. I am attending to matters of state. Mama says matters of state are less important than family. Hadrian shot Carenza an accusing look. You have turned my heir into a revolutionary." Their 2-year-old daughter, Rosalind, toddled over with a book. She thrust it at Hadrian imperiously. "Read." "You see what you have done?" Hadrian scooped her up. "Tiny tyrants who believe books are more important than anything." "Are they not?" He considered, then smiled. "I suppose they are." Later, after the children were surrendered to their nursemaid, Carenza and Hadrian walked through the gardens. "Lady Philippa wishes to visit next month," Carenza said. "Of course, the children adore her." She also mentioned Honoria has been seen working as a milliner's assistant in Bath. How the mighty have fallen. I should feel triumphant, but mostly I feel relieved that their power over me is truly gone. It never could have touched us. Not really. Hadrian drew her close. "You were always stronger than they realized. I had help discovering that. As did I." He kissed her temple. "Do you know what I was thinking earlier? About that night at the ball, when I saw you hiding behind that potted plant. I was not hiding. I was observing. You were hiding," he said fondly. "And I remember thinking, there is someone worth seeing. And now? Now, I think, there is the woman who saved me, who taught me love is not weakness, but strength, who gave me family, home, and reason to be more than a title." Tears pricked her eyes. "You are going to make me weep. Then I will distract you." He kissed her properly, the way he had kissed her in that ballroom 5 years ago. When they parted, Carenza looked at the house where their children slept. "Was it worth it?" she asked. "The scandal? The unconventional beginning?" Hadrian followed her gaze. "Every moment. Every single moment." They walked back together, hand in hand, toward the life they had built from fiction and transformed into truth. The orphan had become a duchess, but more importantly, she had become herself. Thank you for staying until the very end. If this story made your heart soar, please like, comment, subscribe, and share with fellow lovers of romance. Your support keeps our storytelling corner alive. Stay tuned. Another unforgettable story awaits. From all of us, thank you for being here.